This is the Financially Simple Podcast, the show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. The content in the show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor or conduct your own due diligence. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor only conducting business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
And welcome back to the Financially Simple Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread, and today I'm excited to have a colleague from July Business Services as a guest on today's podcast. Now, as you know, we've been dealing with personal finances for business owners, and we spent the last few episodes talking about the different types of accounts business owners can use to accumulate some savings for retirement. Now, you know I don't like often talking about being a CFP. I like the idea of value growth and business growth, but we have to deal with retirement plans. Candidly, today's topic is perhaps one of my favorite type of plans a business owner can utilize. Now, typically we'll look at individuals who have employees. Last time we talked about the solo 401k. Today we're going to deal with the 401k. And actually, Jennifer's going to be joining me for 3 different episodes. So stay tuned for the next 3 episodes as we cover the 401k and then start diving deep into the various types of flavors, if you will, that you can make the 401k. So with that introduction, Jennifer, welcome to the Financially Simple Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, Jennifer, you and I met some year and a half, 2 years ago now, being you're affiliated with July Business Services, and we began shifting our clients' 401ks over to your organization. We'll come back to the business side of things, but tell the listeners a little bit about you, your family, and how you got involved in this 401k business ultimately.
I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. I've got a little boy and a little girl, elementary age kids, and we live here and spend most of our weekends on the soccer field or at violin lessons these days. So I'm pretty busy with that. But as far as how I got into working with 401k plans, I mean, I don't think it's something that anyone really wakes up in as a 6-year-old and says, I want to be in the retirement industry. You know, it's something that I think like most people in this world, I kind of fell into. Started out in the CPA world. That's my background as an accountant, and really love the retirement aspect of it. I love that there's always changes in the law. It's very complex. And there's always more to learn, so you're never bored. But the thing that really got me excited was the idea that I'd be able to help companies and participants save for retirement so that in our retirement years, we would have something to fall back on, and really enjoyed being a part of the industry for about the last 10 years.
Now, I've spoken over the last few episodes about the various types of retirement plans, but this 401k, it's a bit of a beast. And so today, with your help, Jennifer, let's dissect for this particular episode the basics of a 401k. So as we're examining the basics, I know there are a couple of parties involved with a 401k. I know we have a trustee, we have a third-party administrator, bookkeeper, et cetera, et cetera. Can you kind of walk the listeners through the various people or parties or organizations that are involved with dealing with a 401k?
Sure. You definitely have, the company that's sponsoring the 401k, typically called the plan sponsor, and someone there at that organization is typically designated as the trustee who's in charge of overseeing the 401k plan. But as far as outside providers, there's a whole new world of people you have to work with when you set up a 401k. The first would be a financial advisor. The financial advisor's role with a 401k plan is to help select the investments in the plan, monitor those. They also might be involved in participant education. They might come to your office, meet with all your employees, tell them about the plan, help them select investments, those types of things. And then they would meet with you on an ongoing basis as a business owner and advise you about the plan, kind of be the relationship piece of your 401k plan for you. In addition to the financial advisor, you are going to have some sort of a bank. We call the bank that holds your money. Most of the time we call them the custodian. That's really just a fancy name for the bank. That's where all the funds go in the 401k plan. The next person is the record keeper. So I always describe a record keeper as the company that's in charge of keeping track of every penny in your 401k plan, who it belongs to, and what kind of money it is. So as a record keeper, you keep records. Easy way to remember it. You say, this amount belongs to Bobby Sue and it's money that she put in herself, and this much is interest, and this is her new balance. And that's what the record keeper does. You also might think of your record keeper when you say, my 401k is with so-and-so. You typically are talking about your record keeper because that's the website you go to. That's where you log in to see your balance and maybe print off a statement. That's the logo that might be at the top of your participant statement.
Whenever I look at a company like July, and this by no means is a plug for July, that's not why we're here today. We're here for educational purposes, but using your company as an example, I believe July is the plan sponsor, and I believe July can serve as the record keeper. I believe July could serve in a lot of those capacities. Is that common, or do you typically see the business owner having to deal with multiple different companies or parties to facilitate each of these positions that you've thus outlined?
That's a great question. I think what you're going to find across the industry is that most companies are offering at least two of these functions that we're talking about. Some companies might even offer them all rolled into one. So for a plan sponsor, when you're trying to figure out who you want to work with to set up your 401k plan, one of the good things to think about is, how many companies do you want involved in your life? How many contact people do you want to have to meet with or talk to on a regular basis? So a good idea is to streamline and maybe bundle together your record keeper and your custodian, or so that you only really have a few people to talk to. That's a good question.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did we cover all the other participants who would be in the business owner's life? I think I cut you off before you were finished.
I think we just have really one main one to talk about, the TPA. TPA stands for third party administrator. And that really just means the person or the company that's in charge of keeping your plan in compliance, keeping the IRS off your back, filing the tax return that your 401k has to file every year. You may not realize that if you set up a 401k, you've now added a new tax return to your life. Your TPA prepares that and files it for you. They calculate, what you can put into it. They run testing on your plan contributions. That's part of the rules every year. So your TPA is often bundled with your record keeper. That's a pretty common way to go when you're setting up a 401k.
Okay. So let's use that as a segue. Let's talk about setting up a 401k. So we have listeners who've never used a 401k before, and then we're going to have listeners that currently have a 401k that maybe have already set it up. Whenever someone is establishing a 401k and dealing with the plan document, the document which governs the 401k, what are the various options that and we're going to try to keep today's simple, knowing that we're going to be dealing with safe harbor and profit sharing and all the other things coming up in the next two episodes. But what are the basic options that a business owner is going to have to make decisions on when they're designing their 401k plan?
Well, there's quite a few. We have a lot of leeway in how we can design a 401k plan. And the way that we go is really going to depend on what your goal is. Why are you setting up this plan? Is it because you want to offer employees a way to save? You want to retain your employees? Is it because you as the business owner want to maximize your retirement savings? That's usually where we start when we're trying to design a plan. We figure out what your goal is so that we can meet that goal.
So let's separate those two. Let's just keep it simple for today and let's separate those two. Let's say that we have a business owner who is just rolling in the dough and they want to start saving as much money as they can for tax benefits into a 401k. What are the basic decisions they have to make there in that analogy?
In that analogy, then we're really going to want to offer contributions that get them to the maximum. We're going to want to design a plan where they have the opportunity to save the most. So there's usually two kinds of contributions in a plan. You can have what the employees can put in themselves, and we call those deferrals, salary deferrals. And then we have the employer contributions. So if we were designing a 401k plan and the owner wanted to maximize themselves, we would offer salary deferrals that employees can put in themselves. And then we would also want to offer some sort of profit sharing contribution. Profit sharing is a little bit misnamed. It doesn't mean that your company has to be turning a huge profit to use it. It's just an additional contribution that the employer would put in. And there's several different ways that we can structure the plan, but we would structure it in a way that the owner or the highly compensated or officer of the company would get a larger contribution than the team members. There are several different ways you can do profit sharing. One might be everybody gets the same. We wouldn't use that in this scenario. We'd want to use the type of profit sharing that allows the owner to get more.
So in that analogy, if they're trying to maximize taxation, it's all about trying to put as much money into the owner's pocket. So I'm making the assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, that if we're trying to go the opposite direction to add benefit or stickability or some sort of an employee retention purpose, the goal then would be to put more money into the employee's pocket. Am I thinking correctly there?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different goals that employers have. But, we've seen employers where, they really want to incentivize their employees to stay. And so they offer them an employer contribution called a match, where the employees that contribute to the plan get a match of their contributions. Other companies say, we don't care if our employees contribute or not. We need to keep everybody. So we're going to give everyone a contribution, whether they put any money in or not. That's called a non-elective contribution. It means it goes to everybody. So those are really kind of the two kinds of employer contributions you can use to offer your employees some benefit, either a match that goes to only those who are contributing or a non-elective that goes to everybody.
Okay.
You're listening to the Financially Simple Podcast. Show your support by subscribing to this and our other educational business channels at financiallysimple.com.
So let's hit some simple thoughts or some simple facts on the 401k, almost like in rapid format here, so we can lay out the basics. And we're going to come back and deal with profit sharing and safe harbor and some of those other things here in the next episode. Mm-hmm. But let's start with some basics. What can an employee contribute to a 401k?
So there's really two limits when you look at 401k plans: what you can put in yourself and then the total amount that can go in. So each employee can contribute up to $19,000 every year. That's a limit that may change. The IRS may change it for 2020. We don't know. But right now it's $19,000 a year. And if you're over 50, you get a bonus $6,000. So that brings you to $25,000. That's the first limit. That's what you can put in. That applies to everybody, the owner as well as the employees. Then on top of that, we also have the overall limit. Did you want to talk about that one as well?
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. So in addition to the $19,000 or $25,000 if you're over 50, there's a second limit that's your overall contributions to the plan. That encompasses your deferrals or what you put in yourself. So that would be $56,000 is the limit for this year. And if you're over 50, you get that bonus $6,000. So that brings you to $62,000. So your deferrals, what you put in, can be $19,000, and then the employer can contribute the remaining up to that $56,000. Those are the maximum rules, and they apply to everybody across the board.
Now, whenever we split that fork in the road a while ago with if we're trying to maximize it for tax reasons or if we're trying to maximize it for employee retention, one of the things that comes up in the plan document is the vesting schedule. Can we talk about that word a little bit, why that word matters to the employer, and how might they deal with the vesting schedule?
Yeah, vesting is a really great tool. One of the most common ways they use it is to help with employee retention. You have a company where they want to keep people for a certain period of time. Maybe everybody is staying for 2 years and then leaving. One of the ways we can help do that is with vesting. So vesting just means that when money goes into the 401k plan, you can attach a schedule to it that says maybe it doesn't completely belong to you. I know I put $100 in for you as the employer, but you can't have that $100 until you work for me for a certain period of time. So the money goes in. There's several different kinds of vesting schedules that we could use depending on what your goals were. But one of the most common vesting schedules would be 6-year graded. So that just means that there's a different percentage of ownership attached to that money every year. So the first year that they work for you, they get 0. They don't own any of the money that you put in. The second year, they get 20%. And on down the road, every year they get 20% until they've worked for you for 6 years. And at the 6-year mark, then that employee would own all of the employer contributions that you put into the account for them. Another common one is 3-year cliff. That means, kind of like it sounds, that they own 0% of the money until the 3rd year of employment, and then they own it all. Still stays in the plan, but if they were to terminate and leave the company, then they'd be able to take all of that. If they did terminate before the vesting was at 100%, then they wouldn't be able to take all of it. And so the rest of that money, often people say, well, what happens to that money? It's in the plan. The employee doesn't have it. It's not vested. Well, it goes back to the company. The company can then use it to offset other contributions that they might be putting in, and it's a return to the company.
So I have two more questions for you as we're covering the basics, and then I think we're hitting the majority of the basics when we finalize these two questions. The first question is, if I'm setting up as a company, as an owner of a business, what can my employees invest in that 401k?
That's a good question. When you set up a 401k, to the time you're working with a financial advisor like Justin, and between the company and the financial advisor, you come up with a lineup of several investment options. Most of the times they're going to be mutual funds or ETFs, low cost, hopefully. But you can't just pick from any stock out there on the market. There's not 10,000 options in a 401k plan. Most of the time you're limited to a fund choice of maybe 20 or even less investments. And the reason for that is the advisor and the plan sponsor have a duty to make sure that those investments are performing well and that their participants aren't losing money. So you don't want to have to monitor the whole world of funds. You're limiting it to several that you think are performing well. That would be how most of our 401k plans are set up.
Now, we were alluding to the fiduciary responsibilities there that the plan sponsor and the advisor have for the benefit of the employees. Recently, though, I've run across a couple of the larger plans out there, Jennifer, that allow coupling with almost like a brokerage account that actually allows the employees to go out and choose individual stocks, et cetera, et cetera. Are you seeing more of those hit the streets at this point, or are they still kind of rare?
We definitely see those all the time. A common setup would be you have your fund lineup of maybe 20 funds that are there and everybody can pick from them. And then sometimes you have one or two employees in the company that maybe, they like to play the stock market. They are educated about investing and they're interested in doing something more. So what we do is just what you said. We link up a brokerage account. It can be from anywhere that works with your plan. And then that specific person would have their own account where they can pick stocks, make trades with the whole universe of funds that are out there. It's linked to your plan. So the beauty of that and the way July does it is that with it being a linked brokerage account, you just run your payroll like normal and send in your contributions to July. And then we take care of issuing checks to brokerage accounts or sending ACHs to brokerage accounts. That way you're not having to write 100 different checks for each participant. It kind of keeps your time frame down.
Gotcha. So here's my last question. We'll see if I missed anything that was extremely in the basic area. How much does it cost? If I'm a business owner looking at it saying, I'm interested in setting up a 401k for my 10, 15, 20, 30 employees. I know the number of employees matter, but is there a range that I can expect so I don't get sticker shock, or if I wanted to set up a plan?
That's a good question. I don't know if I can give you a hard and fast number across the industry. How much does it cost? Some companies charge fees based on the amount of money in the plan, and other companies charge flat fees. So fees can look very different depending on how much money you have in the plan. Is it a brand new plan? Is it a plan that's been around for many years?
Yeah.
But if you're talking about a startup, are you looking for maybe kind of startup pricing?
No, I'm not exactly trying to nail the pricing down. In my experience, I've seen various different providers, obviously. And as you just said, the fees are hidden, and they're sometimes not hidden, but they're often all over the place. So trying to track down the total fees are crazy sometimes. But I've seen, plans as low cost with 5, 6, 7, 10 employees as a couple $1,000s. And I've seen some fees go up in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the number of participants. Could I summarize the cost by saying it depends, which is like the cop-out answer we use in the financial world, right? Is that a fair way of saying that it really depends based on the details of the plan?
I think so. And it depends on how you bundle or unbundle your providers. If you want to unbundle everything, you're going to probably pay more that way. If you bundle things, I'd say a couple $1,000s just for a startup plan is very reasonable. If you don't want to spend that much on your every year plan kind of maintenance, then that's probably not the best plan design for you. But if you can afford, a couple $1,000s to handle the admin and record keeping, then you'll probably be good.
Now, I know we're going to have you back on the next episode to talk a little bit more about profit sharing, safe harbor, and kind of dive down to the next level. But Jennifer, if somebody wanted to learn a little bit about your business, July Business Services, where would you direct them to?
Well, the best place to start would be julyservices.com. That's services with an S, plural. There's a lot of info there. You can reach out to me there. We also have kind of a sister site, launch401k.com. That's a great small business product for businesses that might be looking to start up a brand new 401k plan.
Perfect. And folks, we'll have the links to both of those sites in the show notes below. Jennifer, I'm looking forward to our next episode. But until we get there, guys, let me just sign off by saying I realize life is hard. I realize that life is good. 401ks, man, they can be frustrating. But look, money doesn't have to be. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Y'all go out and make it a great day.
You've been listening to the Financially Simple Podcast. For more business and personal financial help and information, head over to financiallysimple.com today.